Yesterday, I was talking to a close friend of mine about life and its quirks, the lemons that it throws at us. He was confiding in me about some of the problems that he's been facing lately, and before we realized it, the conversation slowly spiraled towards books. I did not know how to solve his exact problems, but I did share with him how books have helped me in these recent years to solve similar problems in my life, and also how I seek answers to the problems because, well, life is a series of problems or puzzles one after another. And I've been wanting to talk about books and ideas and curiosity and flaws in our human thinking and the understanding of this world, and how reading and learning from the best minds from all different fields might just help to fill this gap in the understanding that we have. And maybe, and just maybe, we get one step closer to understanding the mystery of everything. But here's the problem: reading isn't easy, right? Especially if it's not your thing. Reading is cool and all, but it's not straightforward. Take these two books for an example. While you can read this book chapter after chapter after this book, on the other hand, I've tried many number of times. In fact, I started this back in December. I have barely scratched the surface, as you can see from my bookmark over here. You have to sit and focus and be willing to absorb the information that is on the book. And sometimes that's stupid hard. We all know we should read more, but we don't. It may be so because you may be out of practice and haven't read in a while. So I figured maybe I will try to tell you a story and convince you on reading more. A story about how I kickstarted my reading habit outside of academics, which was dormant for over 10 years. The story begins around early 2000s when I used to read a lot as a kid. Storybooks, kids magazines, and kids newspapers used to be my favorite thing in the whole world. And also back then there wasn't much of an option. I'm talking about 2002 or 2003 when we were living in the countryside and didn't have things like the internet or the cable TV or video games. We did have national television and radio, but for some reason I was just hooked into reading. The stories were the best. But as the academic life took precedence, I stopped reading for fun, and reading was slowly turning into this activity that I did out of academic necessity and not for fun. Fast forward to 2016, I slowly stopped reading outside of academics. Here's why. This is my engineering transcript. In my 4 years of engineering, I passed 67 different courses where I read over dozens and dozens of technical academic books, but barely read any non-academic book. I was specializing for sure, but in hindsight, I think I was over specializing. And I was associating reading as an purely academic activity which I did not enjoy at all, particularly because engineering didn't quite turn out to be what I pictured it to be, so there's that. The approach to engineering felt very more clinical, and in this process, I totally forgot how to have fun with reading, and I just lost interest in following my curiosity with books. After completing my engineering, I went straight to working in a software company in Kathmandu, which was immensely fun at first. New job, salary, occasional free booze, and freedom outside work. But all that jazz faded away quickly because I found myself sitting in front of a computer working 12 to 15 hours every other day, working on projects for clients and also on my side hustles. Now, I don't think I'm bad at it, maybe an average programmer or so, but I never really understood the purpose of coding or what I was building really meant. And I slowly began to question a lot of things. Is this my life? Is this how things will be from now on? Is this what it means to be a computer engineer after 18 rigorous academic years of non-stop classes, homeworks, assignments, labs, and exams? It just didn't seem fair. I was not satisfied with the process and the subpar results of my own. I did what I was told to do: study, get a job, be happy, right? But I wasn't happy. And I was 23, 24 at the time, and back in 2016, traveling videos on YouTube were Such an inspiration, and I always wanted to travel like every other human being. I was following all these rules, but I was never having any fun. So I decided to change the rules. So I realized that before my time slips away any further, I must take my own decisions. So I quit my full-time software engineering job and I started to travel around Nepal with this video production media company. This wasn't a planned step by any means or any stretch of imagination. It was an impromptu action caused by this years of build-up inside me. I was exploring and seeing more of this world with my own eyes instead of being glued to the screen all the time. And after traveling for over a year, I didn't want to return to software development. I was trying to pay my bills with photography and filmmaking, but that gig wasn't flying either. In fact, it was a sinking ship. I was in debt, and even paying the rent for my apartment started being a nightmare. And before the whole thing got better, it got worse. At one point, I even sold my refrigerator to pay the rent for the month. My landlady is sweet though, I just didn't want to keep her waiting. Financial struggle was this tiny little price to pay at 25. I was asking myself, if I'm so sound academically, why do I have these life problems? Why my decision-making ability is in the real world? But the bottom line is, I was lost. During those years, when I was indecisive about what to do with my two careers dangling ahead of me, I read a book that was recommended to me on the premise that it's a good book and can be listened to as well within 90 minutes. I said 90 minutes and Yankee said yes. And I did not really read the actual book because I did not have the book, and somehow buying the book seemed counterintuitive and a waste of money. And I'm not super proud of that, but I was hooked. So how do I describe this experience of reading a book or listening to an audiobook after these many years? It was like discovering this secret thing that people do to solve problems by understanding the underlying nuances of life and human pursuits. Then I read The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday because Casey Neistat talked about him in one of the episodes, and the title was very reasonable to me because I was surrounded by obstacles, and I thought maybe this book will build up on that earlier momentum and will give me more ideas, which it did. I cannot put in words how immensely those books really resonated with me and the struggle that I was going through in my life. I applied to 8 companies today. I got reply from one company and they have decided not to go with me because of time zone differences. So yeah. First of all, they helped me get the bird eye view of the situation. This is all in retrospect, by the way, because at the time I really did not understand how the books were helping, because I could feel as if I was internalizing whatever I was reading. It was changing me from the inside, but nothing was very binary on the outside. But slowly and gradually my perception of the problems and how to make better decisions in life improved. So I doubled down on the reading. And when I say reading, I mean actually listening to the audiobook, because I sort of preferred the audio version. And right around that time, Mark Manson's Bright Orange book was very hot. The master non-giver taught me a sober view of how to view myself and my actions as objectively as possible, and to prioritize the things that I needed to actually give a about. And I prefer the audio version of this book and listen to this day. It's phenomenal. The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey gave me practical tips on my money situation. I like Ryan Holiday so much that I listened to his another book, Ego is the Enemy, which helped me understand my ego with a little more clarity. And maybe it's time to give that book another listen. But anyways, I was in a role. I had bought Apple's overpriced AirPods for this endeavor, and I could feel things falling into their places. Although things didn't change overnight, and I could still feel the shift in my thinking, and I knew I had to keep going in that direction. But then something terrible happened. One day I lost my AirPods. Classic. But even after I lost my AirPods, I kept going. I listened to 3 more audiobooks during that time span in 2019. Not an impressive record by count, but reading isn't a race. It's not about how many books we read, it's really about how deeply we read and how much we understand it. The next year during the pandemic, I started 9 and managed to complete 5 books, and in 2021, I started 7 and completed 3 of them. The reasons why numbers look declining or fluctuating isn't really an important thing. The books that I read and helped me, I reread them again and again and again till the core messages in the books is internalized by my thought process. And over the course of these years, my perception of reading more books equating to more knowledge has gone out of the window. It's a vanity metric, like Naval Ravikant says. And instead, my priority is to read more deeply and associate new information with my existing knowledge. This wasn't a clear or concise process by any means. I think there is this imaginary threshold to reading that we need to break, and once we are past that threshold, we start to feel as if things are falling into their places. After crossing that threshold and after following my curiosity for these many years by reading, I think I am in a better place today. But it did take me many years to rediscover reading and multiple years to really seep into it and appreciate it for what it is. I do still have my fair shares of struggles today, but I do enjoy life and the moments that come across me. Financially, I have recovered from the mess that I was in and have developed a sober understanding of the money and wealth creation and the intricacies between these two things. And there's still a lot to learn and really understand. There's this quote from Einstein that goes like, "As our circle of knowledge expands, so does the circumference of darkness around it." Or as I like to say, the wider is your horizon of known, the more you are in the contact with unknown. Learning is this never-ending process, and to me, the goal is to somehow aggregate all that knowledge that I have read into this giant store of information, which is really dense and highly accurate because it's backed by great minds of our time and before, and still be able to use that as a guiding mechanism in life to make better decisions while understanding the meaning or purpose of life at every given moment, and help me accept and process reality as something where we only have control over our actions and emotions, but not on the results we expect. And that's how I kickstarted my reading habit, which was dormant for over 10 years and has changed my life as I know it. And the reason why I'm making this is because it circles back to the fact that we humans are flawed creatures and we lack greater understanding of the world that we are in. We used to be this curious beings as a child, but as we age, things change, or what George Carlin likes to say is, we are stripped of our individuality and turned into the obedient, soul-dead, conformist member of consumer culture. We trade that for comfort, safety, and stability. We sacrifice exploration. And I think that's where YouTube comes in for me. All these individuals from various walks of life coming together and sharing their fascination about these things that excites them the most. People who are adult but can go hours talking about food, travel, photography, films, stories, comedy, science, philosophy, computers, history, space, astronomy. The list goes on. Seeing this part of YouTube has kindled a fire inside of me for so long that I do dream about doing the same in return. The commonality in everything people do on YouTube is everyone shares what it really means to be them, what it means to be in their shoes, and what's the point of view from their perspective. And at the core, we just want this world to understand us just deeply as we have tried to understand this world.